It's interesting, and this is the hard part about, we talked about Dez going to the meeting last Friday. I told you, Nick, that if I was Dez, I wouldn't go in there with the emotion. I would go in there with my business hat on. I'm meeting with Jerry. That's what Jerry is about, business, and that was on potentially negotiating a salary to keep him in Dallas. I would have the same type of attitude in free agency. You can't be resentful. You can't be trying to get back at Dallas. This is a critical move for your career. This is probably the most important decision you're going to make in the next several years. Because if you don't get with the right organization, you're going to be out of the NFL pretty soon. Now, people are like, oh, wow, that's harsh. This is what happens. You're an elite player. Your talent begins to decline, and then you start bouncing around from team to team. And when you start bouncing around, your salary starts bouncing down and down. So I just believe Dez has the skill level where he can still be a starter, still be a 1,000-yard receiver. But if he doesn't go to the right place, I'll be careful in trying to go to the Giants, all right? They have Brandon Marshall. They're going to pay him about $6 million this year. Is it a good fit skill-wise if they took him over Brandon? I believe he's a better player than Brandon at this point in Brandon's career, but the salary, how does he deal with Odell Beckham being the featured part of the offense week in and week out? I don't know if Dez is ready for that. People talk about Baltimore's interested in him. Well, if he goes there with Michael Crabtree, they would be, in my estimation, the slowest group. I'm talking about speed-wise, starting two receivers in the NFL. And with Joe Flacco being a down-the-field threat, being the best part of his game, I don't think that's a great fit. I think that no team that San Francisco, I think that's where he should go. They have a speed receiver, a guy who would never be a number one in Goodwin. So Dez could still be a number one guy. And I believe Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a good quarterback.
And they got a lot of money.
Kyle Shanahan, his ability to call offensive plays, I believe that would help Dez out. So, to me, I believe the best situation is San Francisco, and I haven't heard a lot of people talking about San Francisco.
And it's not just about, you both admit, what team is best and who has the most money. He has to be able to fit onto that team. It has to be the right system for Dez Bryant. Otherwise, he will end up bouncing around.
And that's why, much like the day Ndamukong Suh got cut, I said the best fit is the Rams. And I was delighted when he ended up there because in my mind's eye, I said him next to Aaron Donald with Wade Phillips, I like how that fits. The day Dez Bryant got cut, I said the Packers. And now that I see the Packers are interested, I like to hear that. And here's why. First of all, Cris has talked a lot about how you want to build your wide receiving core like a basketball team. You want to have your point guard, your shooting guard, your power forward. Well, the Packers don't have a power forward. They got 5'10" Randall Cobb. He's a good point guard. They got 6'1" Devontae Adams. He's a good shooting guard. They need a big guy. They need a big guy who, by the way, doesn't have to beat you with speed because they have that with the other two guys. But the other thing is, where we have seen, Cris said yesterday, Tony Romo made Dez Bryant. How? Well, he would throw to him when he wasn't yet open, when he knew he could throw him open, and those off-schedule plays where Romo's rolling out, but it's not a draw and roll out and pointing down the field. Who's the best I've ever seen at that? Aaron Rodgers. The Packers lost Jordy Nelson. So, for all those reasons, and by the way, they got about $14 million in cap space. For all those reasons, if Dez doesn't want to be bouncing around, Green Bay, to me, makes sense because that is an important point that people don't realize. You can be a great player, but once the team you started with moves on from you, it's hard to maintain your place in this league. One of my favorite players ever, a guy I inducted into the Port Arthur Hall of Fame, Jamal Charles. Once the Chiefs moved on from him and you lose that cachet that you had with that organization, the comfortability in that organization, he went year to year to potentially out of football, even though I think he still has football left. That happens to guys. And so that's why I think Cris is right. This is the most important decision Dez is going to make.
The one thing I worry about Green Bay and any wide receiver ever going to Green Bay, every wide receiver can't play there. I mean, it's cold. People are like, oh, man, you play football in the cold. You don't play in the Green Bay cold. I believe that my career would be definitely altered. Now, I was from Ohio, and I played in Minnesota. If they didn't have a dome there, Dez has been in the South and the Southwest his whole life. He was born in Texas, played his football at Oklahoma State. He might play 2 cold games a year, but comparing 2 cold games compared to I'm playing all my games for the most part outdoors, and I'm playing at least 8 games. Because once it hits October, it's cold in Green Bay. So that's the only thing I worry about. Green Bay's overall dollars that they've already spent on their wide receivers is one problem, and the cold, I believe, would be a detriment for me with Dez going to the Packers.
Where do you fall on the cold? Do you like the cold or you don't?
No, I don't like the cold.